Welcome back, guys, to episode 4 of Q&A with D and J. We got some good, juicy questions again in this week. A lot of bullshit questions.
A lot of bullshit questions.
A lot of bullshit questions, but some good ones. Let's start with the first one. This one comes from Miriam. Another great question from Miriam. The biggest difference between programming for a sports-specific athlete versus someone trying to achieve overall health. You want to start out with this one?
Sure. Well, for a sports-specific athlete and someone who's going to go overall health, a lot of times the program at the beginning is probably going to be kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's like we're just trying to get them in a good core position. Usually everyone who's coming in doesn't know how to lock themselves in at all. Stabilize, approximately. So a lot of the program is just going to be basic movement patterns.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting things squared away. Obviously, the sports-specific athlete is going to have some kind of plyo, speed, power development that maybe we're not looking for somebody who's just general public looking for health.
Yeah.
They probably don't need some of that stuff. So that's probably going to be the main difference at the beginning. And then it's just kind of looking to be like how far we're looking to push with some of the exercises as far as the sports-specific stuff go.
Yeah.
And then with the general, someone just looking for overall health, it's like, we're probably going to push fitness a little bit overall, over strength.
Yeah.
Probably push, a little bit more aerobic capacity. We're never really going to get into too high of an intensity. Whereas some athletes, depending on their sport, we might really push intensity a little bit and definitely go over, put a lot of volume into power development.
Yeah. I think also early days too, we're probably looking to figure out what qualities we can start to train quicker, maybe with an athlete. Trying to get them into the frontal plane a little bit quicker than maybe Gen Pop, where we might have a little bit more time. We don't really need to rush into doing anything crazy like that, right? Let's get them super confident in the sagittal plane, and then just get them pretty good at those basic movements. And then, with the athletes, we know that a hockey player is doing a lot of
they need to be exposed to more.
Exposed to it. That doesn't mean that we're just going to throw them into these crazy protocols or have someone do a lateral lunge on their first day, because it's probably going to look like garbage. But we're going to figure out how we can train some competency in those people so that we can get them to where we need them to be.
Yeah, and that also definitely depends where they are.
Yeah.
So it's like if a 15-year-old athlete comes in but their season isn't for another 6 months, then we probably will kind of slow cook it a little bit. Take our time building some of that competency up before we introduce planes, positions, speeds that they're not really ready for.
Yeah.
But if they're right up to the season, then we kind of know we have to at least expose them to stuff. We'd rather have them do stuff here, where we can kind of see what's going on and control and kind of teach them a little bit about how to move properly and how to stabilize things.
So they're not going 100% into season
exactly.
and doing all sorts of lateral cutting, and the tissues aren't really ready for it.
It's just how people are going to get hurt. So.
Yeah. The next one comes from Kristen. Would you agree doing fitness with poor movement mechanics is doing more harm than good? I think this is, a no-brainer, obviously, as you asked us if we agreed to this. But just to dive into it a little bit more, I think this kind of goes more towards our general population, less towards our athletes in most senses here. But in general, obviously, we never want anyone to be doing poor movement mechanics. So that's why we, have such an aggressive regression scale for people, and we're going to make sure that people are.
That's why we have people in individual programs.
And that's why we have people with individual programs, right? Yeah. So we're not doing, those specific classes like we started out with in the beginning, where we have some great movers, we got some bad movers. So it's hard to pick an exercise that's going to work for all those people, can push these people and not be too challenging for these people.
Yeah.
But I think in general, if we're thinking about poor movement mechanics, throughout the day, most people are living relatively sedentary lifestyles, or they're in kind of bad positions, sitting at a desk, hunching. Like even right now, I'm kind of in probably the worst posture I've been in all day, because I'm, sitting down and relaxing and, on my computer a little bit. So these people that spend hours and hours a day like that, we need to spend as much time when they're in here being in great positions and kind of correcting, I don't want to say posture, but correcting their positioning so that they have a little bit more a better idea of where they should be, right? Where they should be in space. And when they're just sitting at their house and they're cutting something on their cutting board, they're in a good position. They're not hunched over, reaching, bending, twisting.
I mean, I'd say I 100% agree. I would just say there's definitely a spectrum, right? Like, so moving's better than not moving.
course, yeah.
Right? So it's like, obviously, someone doing some kind of form of fitness is better than sitting on your ass. But it's like, there's a spectrum. Like, if you're just in a boot camp class and most of the exercises are relatively low intensity, but you're kind of doing it properly, it's like, that's not good, but that's one thing. If you're in a CrossFit class and you're doing things, Olympic lifts, and you're doing it at high intensity and the movement's proper, the risk is so much higher that, then it's like, I don't know if that's better necessarily.
Oh, exactly.
That, like, there's so much, there's such a risk involved with it. So, no, you shouldn't be doing things, it's important always that you're doing things properly, because otherwise there's just kind of, we're not necessarily moving forward. We're kind of being a little stagnant with how good you're going to feel.
We're just doing busy work.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So, but I mean, from a fitness standpoint, that's still making them healthier, right? Like, if they're building their aerobic capacity, ultimately that's still a good thing for them. But,
and on some level, they're probably building a little bit of resiliency, even if they are in bad positions. They're building resiliency to losing those positions even more, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you're still you're loading bones, you're loading, so it's like you're still building resiliency for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a spectrum on like what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah.
And, some group fitness classes are like, all right, it's not. Is that good? Is that how I would do it? No, but it's not killing these people, and at least they're moving.
Yeah, at least they're getting something done.
But there's some classes where I'm just like, well, that is just horrible, and it's actually potentially going to just really fuck all these people up.
Really damaging.
Yeah. So it's like, you definitely don't want to commend that.
Yeah.
Or recommend that.
I agree. Next question comes from Samantha, and she asks, what our opinion on needs for movement variability?
I'll jump on this one. It's kind of a trend lately in the fitness industry. There's a lot of people talking about movement variability, and people will kind of have I've seen people even have movement variability days where they're spending a whole day on doing things at different planes and different kind of core positions. And I think there's probably some value in that. The thing about it is, we just got to make sure we're not just putting variability in just for the sake of variability.
Yeah.
So we want to, especially athletes, we want to put them in different positions. We want to make sure they're moving correctly in different planes. We want to put, different reactions to different things, different stimulus. Yep. So we definitely want movement variability. I think most people need a lot of it, but it needs to be done correctly. There needs to be some thought process behind, what we're putting in there, and we definitely don't want to just put people in things and be like, oh, okay, like movement variability, like figure it out, like they're just gonna like organize the position because we put them, it's like that's just not really how things work.
No.
You see horrible movement all the time when you just try things out with people.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing as handing someone a dumbbell and saying, all right, do a squat, and then just walking
and
away.
just being like, they'll figure it out.
They'll figure out a squat.
It's just like not really how it works, So I think it's the same thing with any kind of movement, whether it's plyos, agility work, speed work. Like, we need to drill correct mechanics, and we need to make sure, certain things. I need to make sure sagittal plane's moving right before I go to frontal plane. It's just like that's the same. It kind of is always going to be like that. So as much as we're looking to introduce as much variability as possible, you don't want to just do it because just for the sake of it. Yeah, if they're not ready for it, if they don't have the competency, then we're not really getting anything out of that.
No, we're making them more efficient at moving poorly.
Yeah.
Because all they're going to do is try and find another way to get out of it, get out of what we want them to do if they're not able to do it.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it look better and better and better, and they're going to become a better compensator.
Yeah. And that, it's like, and that being said, it's not like everything has to be like perfect.
Yeah.
But they have to have competency. They have to be able to feel what they're supposed to feel. They have to understand the movements. And then it's like, okay, let's add some other elements to it. Let's make this more advanced. Let's add stimulus. We're definitely trying to get to the point where they have this unlimited access to movements.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, to just throw people in there.
Movement variety, yeah, exactly. Movement variety.
And, for certain people, they probably need a lot less. For me, for powerlifting, like, being super good at rotating is not a great thing. Like, I need to be really good at staying
stiff and rigid.
Yeah. So there's like also there's a spectrum with that as well, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, well, I think like in general, what we're alluding to is just in our training systems, we're going to start with simple, lots of feedback where they're feeling all the positions that they need to be in. You know, very few planes.
As much help as possible.
As much help as possible, using walls, using, you know, just really dumbing these exercises down to get them to understand those things. And then slowly as they start getting better and feel those things a little bit more on their own, we'll start slowly pulling those restraints off and let them go. And I mean, that comes with we send out a lot of feedback videos on Fridays about squatting, deadlifting, all these other movements. It's the same thing with plyometrics or just any other movement pattern, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to throw somebody into lateral movement if they don't know how to use their adductors or don't know how to use their glutes, glutes, or don't know how to rotate or be able to organize their.
If they don't even have enough hip flexion to run properly without completely losing a position, how are you supposed to create force laterally?
Yeah, how they gonna change direction?
It's movements that they're not going to be any better at.
Exactly.
You know, so it's just it kind of goes along with all our progressions.
Yeah. Sweet. Next one comes from Kristen again, and she asks why your wife does so much recovery, and which ones do you recommend?
I'll let you hop in on that one.
Yeah, Kristen. I think Kristen does a lot of recovery because she beats her body down pretty good, and that's kind of been her MO since I met her. Probably a little too much, and you know we've dialed that back over the years. She knows that.
Yeah.
It's kind of probably more for her mental health than anything. But when it comes to recovery, like I just kind of said it, I don't think, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, not that many people train hard enough to need recovery.
Yeah.
If you're just lifting once a week or once a day or like a couple days a week, training maybe 4 days a week, we don't really need that much recovery outside of you know your general foam rolling warm up kind of stuff. You know, sprinkling a little stuff in here and there is probably going to be good if you know you're feeling a little beat up, or maybe just taking a week off or doing a deload week. Like that's the kind of stuff that, you know, from a training perspective can help you feel a little bit better.
I mean, and then there's even arguments about deload weeks. It's like how many people really need a deload week when life generally works you in some deload weeks. Like Thanksgiving, like you're gonna be with your family's there, you don't get real workouts in. You know, like it happens. You know, it's like, do you really need like a full another week like a week bullshit? Like probably not. Like, you know, so you gotta earn your recovery.
You gotta earn your recovery for sure. Having done a lot of the recovery stuff, I've done like infrared sauna, done the cryo, done the float, done some stretching classes and stuff like that. Yoga, done ice baths. I'd say the two that I like the most. I think massage is very important. Just because, probably one of the reasons, because I don't spend enough time doing like any sort of foam rolling or target work. Not that I think that has like a massive impact, and I'll kind of just go into my warm-ups, get my tissue temperature up, get sweating a little bit and go into it. You know, train a couple positions that I'm going to get into in my workout, but in general I don't spend that much time doing that kind of stuff. And obviously playing rugby, my body gets pretty jacked up. So I think that doing massage is pretty good for your body. Having someone else actually like really work on your body, I think is always going to be a little bit better than what you can do self-applied. And then something I'm a big fan of is ice baths. I think ice baths are massive, and there's some research that says it doesn't work. The rice guy says it doesn't work, and then the rice guy comes out with rice and then comes back and says rice doesn't work. But I think anything, what you're looking for in terms of recovery, right, is we're just looking to get rid of metabolic byproduct. We're looking to get rid of inflammation. So anything that can increase blood flow a little bit, anything that decreases inflammation is going to help you recover quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's none of those things are going to hurt you really. So it's not like it's like if you got the means, like whatever, go for it.
Yeah. If you have the means and time.
Yeah, right? Means and time. That's the thing. It's like, is it worth your time? That's kind of the question. And it's like, I think some of them are kind of like up for debate, but if you have the time, like probably none of them are going to hurt you. I would say definitely like ice bath. And I also think there's a lot of research that talks about how good saunas are for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one that if I had more access to that, I'd probably actually do that like daily.
I used to do that every day when I worked in health.
Things that even outside of just like your recovery, but just like getting your body temperature up really high, and like regularly is supposed to be like a really good thing. So I mean, I think some of it's just if you're spending time on yourself to decrease stress. It's like even that hour massage, even if it's not actually what he's doing to the tissue.
If you fall asleep.
If you relax, it's like you're taking an hour where you're just saying, I'm not going to be on my fucking phone. I'm not adding stress. I'm relaxing.
Yeah.
If you can really get away, I think that just taking away that sympathetic tone of stress at work, stress, like in the gym, and then stress, outside.
Yeah.
It's like if we can just take that away, I think you're aiding your recovery.
Yeah, I mean, you're just spending some time on yourself, and like you said, just clearing your head. Because
Yeah.
most of those things, you're going to be pretty relaxed doing them.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Besides the ice bath.
Besides ice bath,
no.
you're usually trapped up by your ears at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that kind of hits that one pretty good. Does a distance runner need to strength train? The answer is definitely yes. You want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, sure. I think everybody needs to strength train a little bit. I'm a little biased with that, but
I agree.
but yeah, I mean, a distance runner, whether a short distance, if it's like a track person runner, they obviously do. Like strength and power are just extremely important to that. But yeah, even a distance runner. I mean, the thing about distance running, any endurance sport, is you're just beating the shit out of yourself no matter what. Like you're doing a repetitive motion. There's no one's perfect, so it's like you're gonna accumulate a lot of volume of a pattern that's probably not that great, So you're gonna have a lot of stress to joints and muscles that are gonna be overworked, certain ones. So your strength work is gonna not only aid in your performance of, like, obviously if your legs are stronger, you're gonna be able to push through, like over a hill or something, like when we're getting fatigued. But a lot of it is just getting things into the right place, getting muscles firing that are asleep, just haven't been activated correctly. Going through ranges of motion that you're not going through at all when you're running is not a high range of motion.
Not much hip
thing.
flexion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
not much hip extension.
If we want to really maintain range of motion, we're going to have to go through full range of motion with a load and actually change the muscle fibers, So I think that's a big part of it, is just to stay healthy, you're going to have to strength train.
Yeah.
And then obviously, being stronger, is going to aid your performance.
Yeah.
I think when you're dealing with endurance sports, it's harder from a programming standpoint because they're putting on so much volume on their body that you're trying to minimize stress.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's similar to other strength sports. It's like the whole time it's just minimizing stress. You're just trying to figure out how much can we push without taking away from their performance.
Yeah.
Because they're already going to just be spending so much time just beating themselves down, basically.
Yeah. I think honestly, some stuff that we've been doing a lot lately too, just with some of our endurance athletes, is honestly doing probably some simple movements that we're maybe doing, like some high rep, more like hypertrophy endurance type work at very simple, almost like single joint movement stuff, right? Like that's going to give them probably some of the best results from that stuff. We don't need to have them doing Olympic lifts and all these crazy compound things, because realistically that's not their goal.
Yeah.
And we're probably just trying to get them, like you said, a little stronger in certain positions. So doing tempo work and doing, making sure they're going through full range of motion is going to help them a lot with,
like we said, like muscle activation.
Muscle activation.
We want to make everything as muscular as possible. So that if they're doing higher reps, a little slower tempo, like that's going to be way better for them, so they can actually feel what they're supposed to be working, opposed to like if they're jumping around, fucking slamming, trying to like lift heavy weights, like where they're putting more impact on their joints.
More stress.
More stress. We don't need that. Like, so it's trying to get them into really easy moving things, and just make sure we're firing things that they're not firing.
Yeah. And I mean, another thing that we talked about maybe a month or so ago, we were talking about how endurance athletes, they're just they turn off the pain signals, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So good endurance athletes are probably pretty bad at knowing what's going on with their body, because they kind of have to ignore that stuff. A marathon runner at mile 17 kind of needs to,
they need to not feel their
They need to not feel
their
anything.
hip flexor.
Exactly. They need to like
shut
tune that
down.
out. So, I know at least working with some of our endurance athletes that they're not the best at feeling specific muscles and feeling patterns. So we need to dumb those things down, like I said, and make those exercises a little bit more simple.
And I think that it's another case. This is a situation where we really definitely want some movement variety.
Yeah.
It's like that. This is an example of like, somebody who moves forward for fucking 26 miles. Yeah, we need to get them to be doing some kind of lateral work. Does that mean it's going to be like a lateral lunge? No. Like, we just need frontal plane muscles activated.
Yeah.
So we need to find different movements, different kind of drills to get things active at least.
Yeah.
And that's where that kind of movement variability comes in.
Yeah, and I think that's where, especially with runners, we'll try and avoid that anterior knee pain that's usually generally stemming from IT band syndrome, which again obviously just comes to hip function, right? And if we can get a little bit more frontal plane stability, hips are going to stabilize their knees, their feet are going to be in a lot better position, right? So they're actually going to be able to absorb and produce force the way that they need to, and that kind of isn't just stemming up the chain and jacking their knees up, jacking their feet up, right? Because those overused things are what you see, and I think that a lot of that comes from just doing what they do, And
lack of variability.
if you did nothing but back squat every single day, you're probably gonna get pretty decent at back squat to a point, and then you're gonna hit a pitfall, and you're gonna hurt yourself a little bit, and then you're gonna have to come back up. So even though
there's a reason why there's other accessories.
There's accessory work that you do in your training program, because otherwise, if you just back squat every day, you're gonna
it's gonna be a problem.
You're gonna clunk out pretty soon.
And then you see it all the time with the cycle of endurance athletes of getting hurt, recovering, going back, getting hurt, recovering, and it's just like a lot of it. If they had done enough strength work throughout and enough just like keeping themselves healthy with some movement variability, with some extra loaded range of motion in different different positions, like they'd be a lot better off.
Yeah,
they probably wouldn't have to go through that cycle as much.
Yeah, and I think that part of that probably comes down to that mental resiliency and toughness that they have. Is that even though they might not be in shape to run,
there's always going to be
this pace or this distance,
yeah.
they're going to be able to mentally push through it and be like, I've done this before, I've been here, and be able to push through that. And then if they're pushing through it and their body's not ready for them to be there, that's when the wheels start falling off the wagon a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that was pretty good.
That it?
Nailed that.
All right, brother.
Another episode of Q&A with D&J.
See you guys next time.